She read it 3 times, not because the words might change on a fourth pass, but because that's what you do when you're hunting for some hidden mercy in a sentence, some soft edge you missed. There was none. Her phone lay face up on the counter, screen still glowing, and she studied it the way you'd study a bill that had come back wrong, with focus, not heartbreak. I'm leaving with your sister. Don't wait for us. Behind those words sat 12 years of shared paperwork. If anyone wanted to understand the marriage, they wouldn't find it in the framed photos in the hallway. They'd find it in the folder locked inside her home office cabinet. The condo was deeded to both of them, but the loan had been restructured 18 months earlier under her name alone, back when his business line of credit collapsed for reasons he'd never fully explained. Their joint account covered nothing but bills and takeout. The real account, the one that had quietly absorbed years of overtime pay and a modest settlement from her father's estate, had never included his name. He'd known this. He'd initialed the paperwork without reading a line of it, same as he did with everything. She typed 4 words back. Her fingers were steady, and the narrator won't dress that up as strength. It wasn't that she felt nothing, it was that some part of her had already done this math long before he confirmed it. She'd run these calculations quietly for months, back when he started stepping outside to take calls and snapping his laptop shut a beat too quickly. She hadn't known the shape of it. She'd known there was a shape. Take care of yourself, she wrote, then turned the phone face down and started a list on the back of a parking receipt. Accounts, locks, lawyer, in that order, because that was the order that mattered, not the order that felt satisfying. The card company needed 6 minutes to freeze the shared card and mail a replacement. The bank was slower. She had to repeat herself twice, explaining she wanted a name stripped from account access without shutting the account down entirely, and the agent on the line sounded almost unimpressed by how calm she was. No cracking voice, no pause, just a woman reading off numbers she'd memorized years ago. The locksmith arrived that night around 9:30. He didn't ask why a woman was rekeying her own front door alone on a Wednesday. He'd clearly stood on other porches on other Wednesdays. He worked without much conversation, just the occasional click of a new cylinder sliding home, and she watched from the doorway, arms folded. Not from the cold, but from a stance she recognized, the same one she used in performance reviews when someone tried to talk over her spreadsheet. She phoned her cousin, a real estate attorney, not to plot revenge, but to ask one plain question. What happens to a co-owned condo when one owner leaves the state with somebody else? He gave her a straight answer, no hand-holding, because he respected her enough to know she didn't want comfort. She wanted facts. She wrote his answer under the locksmith's invoice on the same receipt. She didn't cry that night. The narrator offers no theory for this, only a note. Grief that's already been rehearsed by suspicions sometimes shows up late, wearing a different face than you expected. The knock came at 7:15 the next morning, while she was still in yesterday's sweatshirt, coffee going cold on the counter. 2 officers, not there for her. That detail took a second to land, the way an unfamiliar word in a familiar sentence makes you reread it. They were following up on a fraud report tied to a savings account opened 9 years earlier, solely in her name, set up back when her accountant recommended keeping it separate for tax reasons, and never touched since. In the past 3 days, the account had absorbed a run of charges: a beachfront resort in Tulum, 2 one-way tickets, a boutique jewelry purchase, none of it hers. She hadn't made a single charge, hadn't checked the account balance in over a year, hadn't thought about it at all. The officer's tone was flat, almost administrative, and that flatness is what made it land so hard. He wasn't delivering justice. He was there because a fraud algorithm had flagged spending on an account that, legally, belonged to her and only her. Because whoever had been swiping that card hadn't understood that her name on an account meant her account, not a resource he still had quiet claim to. She sat at her own kitchen table and answered every question with the same even voice she'd used with the bank the night before. Yes, that account was hers. No, she hadn't authorized any of it. Yes, she had a guess who did. She told them exactly what they needed and nothing else. When they left, she felt no victory. She understood, with the same clear-eyed exhaustion that had carried her through the last day, that none of this would undo anything. He'd likely talk his way clear of real charges, or she'd choose not to push it, too worn down for a legal fight stacked on top of everything else. The woman who'd been her sister for 30 years was somewhere she'd probably never see again, and no amount of paperwork touched that particular wound. His consequences were real, though. He'd lose access to money he'd assumed was still partly his, and face embarrassment in front of people whose opinion he actually valued. But it was partial. He'd lose access, not comfort. entitlement, not ease. What she walked away with wasn't closure. It was something quieter and more durable. Proof that she'd read her own life correctly, even during the stretches she hadn't wanted to. By Monday, she was back at her desk. She cleared her inbox, sat through a quarterly review, made the usual small talk with her team, and nothing more. She was still married on paper, for now. The legal unraveling always takes longer than the emotional one. She hadn't yet decided what grace would look like once there was no one left to perform it for. But driving home that evening, she noticed something. She'd stopped scrolling back through his old messages, searching for the line she might have missed. There wasn't one. There never had been.